All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to put on our detective hats and crack the case on one of the biggest, most talked about economic mysteries out there, the recession.
I mean, you hear this question everywhere, right? It's all over the news, it's all over your social media feed, and it seems like everyone, from the top economist to, the captain of your fantasy football league, has a theory.
So, people see the stock market taking a nosedive, and that little gut feeling starts to kick in. That, uh-oh, here we go again feeling. And it feels like a sure sign of a downturn, doesn't it? Or, hey, maybe it's something closer to home. You see changes right in your own neighborhood, and you start to wonder, is this one little thing part of a much, much bigger, more troubling picture?
Look, it feels like everyone is just kind of guessing in the dark. But what if you could actually spot the clues for yourself? What if you had the tools to investigate the health of the economy on your own? Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to build your official recession detective kit.
Okay, so first things first, any good detective has to know exactly what crime they're investigating, right? So, what is a recession, really? I mean, what's the official definition?
So this is super interesting. On one hand, you've got the simple rule of thumb that pretty much everyone knows. 2 straight quarters where the economy, or GDP, shrinks. But then, you have the official definition. This comes from the group that actually makes the call, the National Bureau of Economic Research, or NBER for short, and their definition is way broader. They're looking for a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy, lasting more than a few months. So it's not just one number, it's more of a judgment call based on the whole picture.
All right, let's move on to our first clue, and honestly, this might be the most reliable one in our entire detective kit. We're talking about the yield curve. You've probably heard this term thrown around a lot, and for a very, very good reason.
So what the heck is a yield curve? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's just a chart. It shows you the return, or the yield, you get on government bonds over different periods of time. The best way to think about it? It's like a snapshot of how confident the bond market is about the future of the economy. So normally, the curve slopes upward. Makes sense, right? You get paid more interest for locking your money up for a longer time. That signals a healthy, growing economy. But when the curve inverts, whoa, that's when it slopes downward. And that is a huge, flashing red light. It basically means investors are so worried about the near future that they're demanding a higher return on short-term bonds. It's the market basically screaming at us that there might be trouble ahead.
And get this isn't just some fringe economic theory. It's got an absolutely incredible track record. An inverted yield curve has shown up before every single U.S. recession for the last 60 years. As a clue, as a forecasting tool, it is unbelievably powerful.
And look at this. This really shows you just how predictive it can be. On average, it gives us about a 13-month warning. Now, it's not a perfect clock, right? Sometimes it's a bit shorter, sometimes it's longer. But still, that's more than a year's heads up. It is a massive warning signal that you can't ignore it.
Okay, but here's the thing. Not all clues are as clear-cut and straightforward as the yield curve. Sometimes the evidence is, well, it's kind of puzzling. Let's look at our next clue, the jobs report, because this is where things get really complicated.
So here's another awesome tool for our kit. It's called the SOM rule, named after the former Fed economist Claudia Somm. It's actually a really simple but powerful real-time indicator. It just looks at the 3-month average unemployment rate. If that average rises by 0.5 percentage point above its lowest point from the last year, the rule triggers. It's a signal that a recession is very likely starting or already has.
So why is this clue so puzzling right now? Well, one word: pandemic. It just threw a massive wrench into everything. We saw these crazy historic layoffs, followed by this massive wave of rehiring. It created a trend in the data that was, and I quote, on a path never seen before. So trying to read the unemployment numbers the old way, it's just really, really tough.
And this is where the real detective work starts to matter. One economist, a guy named Ed Leamer, did something pretty clever. He basically took the data and statistically removed those wild pandemic months to see what was underneath. And what he found was a flat trend. Now that might not sound scary, but that flat pattern is something that is often shown up right before a recession hits. It's a perfect example of why you have to look deeper than just the headline numbers.
Okay, let's recap. We know what crime we're looking for, we have a super reliable predictive clue, and we have a puzzling one that needs a closer look. So let's assemble the full case file. We need a few more final clues to get the whole picture. So, remember that NBER group? the official arbiters of recessions, well, when they're trying to decide if we're in a recession right now, these are the four main things they look at. Think of these as in-the-moment clues. They don't predict the future, they tell you what's happening today. They're looking at personal income, consumer spending, industrial production, and employment. If all of those are pointing down, and have been for a few months, yeah, you're pretty much in a recession.
So here it is, your complete recession detective toolkit. You've got GDP growth for that quick rule of thumb. You have the yield curve, which is kind of like your crystal ball for what's coming down the road. You've got the SOM rule to keep an eye on the job market in real time. And if you want a great all-in-one indicator, you can look at something called the Leading Economic Index, or LEI. It just bundles 10 different clues into one number. Put them all together, and you've got a really solid, comprehensive view of things.
But before we close the case file, there is one last really critical point we have to make, and it's this. The economy and the stock market are not the same thing. I'm going to say that again. The economy and the stock market are not the same thing. You can have a falling stock market without a recession, and you can absolutely have a recession without a total market crash. They're related, for sure, but they are two different pieces of the puzzle.
And really, that's the whole point of this. The economy isn't some big, unknowable mystery. It leaves clues behind, just like any good case. And now, you have the framework to spot them. You know the right questions to ask. So the next time you hear someone ask that big question, are we in a recession, you don't have to guess anymore. You can be the detective. You can look at the evidence for yourself and ask, what story are these clues really telling me today?